Princess Lyra sat alone in the quiet chamber, staring at the glowing symbols on the treaty screen. For the first time in many years, her people had a real chance at ending the long conflict with the Terran Union. The war had drained both sides, ruined planets, and turned hopeful futures into cold memories. Every diplomat, every general, every advisor around her had argued endlessly about terms and demands. But in the end, the solution came down to one sentence she never expected to see. Marriage. Not a symbolic exchange. Not a ceremonial bond. A real political union. Lyra, daughter of the Sarathi Dominion, would marry a human. She did not know his name yet. All she knew was that he was respected in the Terran Union and trusted by their military and political leaders. She assumed he must be a scholar or a diplomat. Humans were known for talking more than fighting. They had strange ways, unpredictable behavior, and short lifespans that confused the Sarathi. But the Terrans were also known for their stubbornness and their habit of showing up in places they were not expected to survive. Rumors traveled fast in a war, and stories about them had grown into legends. Lyra tried not to think of legends. Legends were only stories. She wanted logic. She wanted facts. A soft chime echoed through the room, signaling that the human delegation had arrived at the palace. Her breath caught. It was time. She stood from her seat, straightened her ceremonial robe, and walked toward the balcony that overlooked the landing platform. The wind carried the scent of metal and distant storms, a reminder that her homeworld was strong, yet even strength had limits. She watched as a sleek Terran shuttle lowered itself onto the platform. The engines hummed smoothly, quieter than Sarathi designs. Then the door opened. She expected a group of human officials in polished uniforms. Instead, only one figure stepped out first. A man, tall, broad-shouldered, walking with calm and steady movements. His uniform was simple, but marked with symbols she recognized. The crest of a Terran captain. His hair was dark, his expression neutral, his eyes sharp and alert like someone who had been in dangerous places and learned to survive them. Captain Elias Ward. So that was his name. He looked too young to be a diplomat, too serious to be a politician, and yet too controlled to be a reckless soldier. Lyra felt a strange tightness in her chest. She reminded herself not to judge by appearances. She had heard exaggerated tales during the war, humans who lifted machines twice their size, humans who sprinted through battlefield storms, humans who refused to surrender even when surrounded. None of it made sense. Logic said these were myths created to frighten the enemy. Elias stepped forward and bowed politely, a gesture adapted to Sarathi custom. "Princess Lyra?" he said, in a steady voice. "It is an honor to meet you." His accent was different from her own, but his tone held warmth. Not forced, not overly formal, just sincere enough to catch her attention. She nodded slightly. "Captain Ward, welcome to Sarath." There was a moment of silence. Not uncomfortable, but heavy, with the realization that both of them were standing at the edge of history. 1,000 eyes watched them from windows, screens, and hidden cameras. Two civilizations waited for their next words. Lyra gestured gently toward the hall behind her. "Please follow me. The council is waiting." Elias walked beside her, his steps quiet but confident. She noticed he moved like someone ready for danger, even in peaceful halls. It was not fear, more like habit. A soldier's habit. As they walked, she studied him discreetly. His posture was straight, but relaxed. His eyes scanned his surroundings with quick, precise glances. His hands were empty, and yet she sensed he could act faster than most warriors she had met. She tried to understand him, but humans were often difficult to read. "You seem tense," Elias said softly, surprising her. Lyra blinked. "I am not tense. I am preparing." "Preparing is normal," he replied, offering a small, reassuring smile. "This is important for both of us." She looked ahead again, unsure how to respond. He spoke gently, but he did not sound weak. He carried himself with a quiet strength she could feel, even without touching him. When they reached the council chamber doors, they opened automatically. Inside waited a group of Sirathi elders, tall and elegant, with robes that shimmered with faint energy. The room glowed with blue light reflecting off crystal panels. In the center, a circular table displayed the treaty. As Lyra stepped inside, one of the elders spoke. "Captain Ward, welcome. We appreciate your willingness to participate in this alliance." Elias bowed respectfully. "I am here because peace matters. If this marriage helps bring it, I accept my role." The elders exchanged approving glances. Lyra felt her heart steady. He spoke simply, without dramatic emotion. Yet his sincerity had weight. The treaty discussion began, covering responsibilities, rights, cultural traditions, and political expectations. Lyra listened closely to Elias's answers. He asked smart questions, showing he had prepared carefully. When the elders explained Sirathi traditions, he listened with genuine interest. When they described expectations, he responded calmly, never complaining. Most impressive was his restraint. Humans were known to be emotional, but Elias chose his words with care. Not out of fear, he simply respected the seriousness of the moment. After the formal discussions, the elders stepped out to speak privately. Lyra and Elias remained inside the chamber. The silence that followed felt different from before, quieter, more personal. "You did well," she said softly. Elias smiled faintly. "Thank you. I wasn't sure how your people would see me." "They see someone willing to bring peace," Lyra replied. He studied her for a moment. "And you? How do you see this?" She hesitated. For years, she had negotiated treaties, balanced politics, and carried the hopes of her people. Yet this one question felt harder than all the others. "I see a chance for change," she answered honestly. "A chance to stop fighting. A chance to build something new." Elias nodded slowly. "Then we share the same goal." His voice held no doubt, no hesitation. For some reason, it eased her worry. When the elders returned, they announced their agreement. The marriage would proceed. A new era of cooperation would begin. Lyra felt the weight of destiny settling on her shoulders, but not as heavily as she expected. Standing beside Elias, she felt less alone. As the meeting ended, Elias offered his hand. Humans used this gesture for trust. Lyra looked at his hand for a moment, then placed hers gently in his. A small spark ran through her chest, not electricity, but a feeling she could not name. The war had shown her the worst of humanity. But now, standing with Elias Ward, she wondered if she was about to discover the best. Princess Lyra woke early the next morning, long before the palace lights brightened. She had barely slept. Her mind kept replaying the previous day, the treaty meeting, the agreement, and the quiet confidence of the human she was now bound to. The halls around her were silent, but she could not calm her thoughts. Peace was close, yet peace always carried risk. Her people trusted her, and she needed to understand the man who would stand beside her. She stepped out onto her balcony, letting the cool air brush against her skin. From here, she could see the training grounds, an empty circle of stone and metal, normally used by Sirathi warriors to sharpen their skills. This morning, someone was already there. It took Lyra a moment to recognize him. Captain Elias Ward stood in the center of the grounds, alone. His uniform jacket lay folded on a bench. He wore simple training clothes. His hands wrapped lightly. The sky was still dark, but he moved with perfect focus, striking at holographic targets that appeared and faded around him. His movements were fast but controlled, powerful, yet quiet. Lyra leaned forward slightly. She had seen trained fighters before. Sirathi warriors were strong and elegant, but Elias moved differently, like someone who had fought in real battles. not just practiced for them. Every punch, every dodge, every motion looked deliberate. She watched as a drone activated near him, spinning a rod-like weapon. Most warriors took a defensive stance against such a drone. Elias did not. He stepped toward it, body lowering, and knocked it aside with a quick sweep of his arm. The drone tried to adjust, but he was already ahead of it, predicting its next move before it made it. Lyra had not expected this. When he finished, he turned toward the balcony, noticing her presence. Instead of looking embarrassed or surprised, he simply smiled and gave a respectful nod. "You're awake early," he called up calmly. "So are you," she replied, stepping away from the railing and walking down the stairs toward the training grounds. Elias picked up his jacket but didn't put it on yet. "I usually start my day with training. It keeps me focused." Lyra reached the edge of the field and studied him for a moment. He looked relaxed, not even breathing heavily, despite the demanding workout. "You fight differently," she said quietly. He raised an eyebrow. "Different from your warriors?" "Yes. You fight like someone who expects danger anywhere." 2. Elias let out a soft breath. "That's because I've seen it appear anywhere." He didn't say more, and she didn't press him. Instead, she asked, "Are all humans trained like this?" His answer came with a small grin. "No. I trained harder than most. My role required it." Lyra continued watching him. The rumors she had always dismissed suddenly felt less like exaggerations and more like warnings made real. But Elias didn't carry himself like a legend. He seemed grounded, humble even. "Would you like to walk?" he asked. She nodded. And together, they left the training grounds, moving toward the palace gardens. The paths glowed faintly under their feet, lighting up with each step. Lyra noticed Elias studying the plants. They were unlike anything found on Earth, with spiraled leaves and glowing petals. He touched none of them, only admired them. "Your world is beautiful," he said. She glanced at him. "You have seen only one small part. It's enough to see the care your people give it." They walked in silence for a moment. Birds with crystalline wings drifted overhead, catching light like floating shards. Elias watched them with quiet wonder. "On my homeworld," he said softly, "we have much simpler creatures. Strong, fast, but nothing like this." Lyra found herself smiling a little. His honesty was refreshing. Many visitors to the Sarathi Dominion tried to praise everything in exaggerated ways. Elias spoke plainly, without trying to impress her. As they walked deeper into the garden, Lyra asked something that had been sitting in her thoughts since yesterday. "Why were you chosen for this marriage? There must have been many human leaders." He didn't answer right away. He paused near a tall, glowing tree, running his hand along the warm bark. "I wasn't chosen at first," he said finally. "Others were considered. But the Union needed someone who could be trusted by both sides. Someone who had seen the cost of war and wanted it to end." "And you?" she asked softly. He nodded. "I've lost good people, friends. I don't want another war. If this marriage means saving lives, then it's worth it." His honesty touched her more than she expected. She could hear no pride in his words, only sincerity and experience. They continued walking until they reached a quiet sitting area. Lyra sat on a curved stone bench, and Elias sat beside her at a respectful distance. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Of course. What do your people expect from me? Truly?" The question surprised her. Most humans she had met, mostly prisoners of war or negotiators, had been defensive or proud. Elias genuinely wanted to understand. "They expect stability," Lyra said slowly. "They expect this alliance to show the galaxy that we are no longer enemies. They expect cooperation and trust." Quote. Elias nodded, absorbing her words. She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "I expect honesty, respect, and patience. Our cultures are different, It will take time. I can give that, he replied. His voice was gentle, and she believed him. Before she could speak again, a messenger approached. Princess Lyra, Captain Ward the Council requests your presence. Preparations for the public announcement are complete. Lyra stood, smoothing her robe. Elias rose beside her. This will be the first time our people see us together, she said quietly. Then let's give them hope, he answered. They walked side by side toward the main courtyard. As they stepped outside, a large crowd filled the space. Sarathi citizens standing shoulder to shoulder. The air buzzed with curiosity and murmurs. When Lyra appeared, the crowd bowed. When Elias stepped beside her, the crowd grew silent, studying the human with uncertain eyes. Some were cautious, some nervous, some simply curious. Elias did not shrink from their gaze. He stood tall, calm, respectful. Lyra stepped forward and spoke clearly, her voice echoing through the courtyard. She explained their marriage, the treaty, and the future they hoped to build. When she finished, Elias stepped forward. I do not come here as a conqueror or a stranger, he said simply. I come as someone who believes peace is possible. I will honor this union, and I will protect it. His words, though simple, carried a strong weight. Lyra felt the crowd shift, some relaxing, some softening. He didn't make promises he couldn't keep. He spoke like a man who had survived enough battles to know the true value of peace. When the announcement concluded, Lyra glanced at him, surprised by how well he handled the moment. Elias met her gaze with a small, quiet smile. And for the first time, Lyra felt that her choice, this marriage, this alliance might not simply be politics. It might be the beginning of something far more powerful. 1 week after the public announcement, Princess Lyra and Captain Elias Ward traveled to the moon city of Vellis, a neutral place often used for cultural exchanges. The visit was meant to show unity between the Sarathi Dominion and the Terran Union. Lyra had prepared speeches and meetings. Elias had prepared for anything that might go wrong. Lyra did not expect trouble. Vellis was safe, peaceful, and heavily monitored. But Elias moved through the spaceport with the same quiet alertness he always carried. His eyes tracked crowds, exits, shadows, anything that could become danger. Lyra noticed this and wondered again what he had lived through to make him so aware. They entered the Moon City Council Hall, greeted by officials, scholars, and curious citizens. Many stared at Elias with a mix of fascination and confusion. Humans were still rare on Sarathi territory, and rumors about them spread faster than truth. During a private tour, Lyra found herself relaxing. The city shimmered with gentle light, the floors glowing with shifting colors that changed as people walked across them. Vellis was beautiful in a way that made her hopeful. She walked ahead, her voice calm as she explained the history of the moon, while Elias listened with genuine interest. But just as she turned a corner, a deep rumbling shook the ground. Elias stopped instantly. Lyra felt her heart jump. Lights flickered, dust fell from the ceiling, and alarms blared throughout the city. What was that? Lyra whispered. An explosion, Elias said quietly. Close. Before she could respond, a message flashed across the wall panels, an emergency broadcast. Unidentified forces attacking Vellis. All civilians evacuate. Defense teams mobilizing. Lyra's breath caught. Vellis was neutral territory. No one should attack it. Only a rogue faction would dare such a move. Elias placed a steady hand near her shoulder, guiding her back. We have to get you somewhere safe. But Lyra shook her head. If this is a Sarathi breakaway group, they may be targeting us. Hiding won't solve anything. Round 2. 2000. Elias didn't argue, but his eyes sharpened. Then, stay close. Armed drones and guards rushed down the corridors, shuttling citizens to safe zones. Panic echoed through the hall. But Elias walked forward with calm steps, weaving through fleeing crowds with Lyra beside him. Another blast echoed from deeper inside the city. The lights flickered again. "They're inside the perimeter," Elias said. "Too fast for a normal assault." Lyra glanced around. "They want to capture us." "Maybe," Elias replied, "or force a political crisis." They reached a large chamber where several guards had taken defensive positions. The leader bowed quickly to Lyra. "Princess, we are under attack by Commander Vadrin's forces." Lyra's chest tightened. Vadrin was a radical Sarathi warlord who opposed the treaty. He believed peace with humans was weakness. She had heard his speeches, his threats, his promises to restore Sarathi supremacy. "He must not take you," the guard said, panic in his voice. "We cannot hold him back long." Lyra opened her mouth to speak, but Elias stepped forward calmly. "Show me the layout of this area," he said. The guards hesitated. They didn't trust him fully yet, but Lyra nodded at them, and the leader projected a map. Elias studied it carefully. His eyes moved quickly, analyzing angles, corners, entries. He pointed at a narrow passage on the left. "That's the weakest route for them," he said. "They'll come through there first." The guard frowned. "How do you know?" "Because if I were leading the attack, that's what I'd do." Before the guard could respond, distant footsteps echoed down the corridor. Elias turned his head slightly, listening. 30 to 40, he said, moving in formation. The guards looked at him with disbelief. No human should hear that from so far away. But Lyra didn't doubt him. "We need to move you now," the leader insisted. Elias shook his head. "If you move her in open hallways, they'll trap us. They want her to run." Lyra looked at Elias. "What do you suggest?" "Stay here," he said. "Behind me." The guards stared. One whispered. But Lyra remembered what she saw earlier that morning. Elias training, moving with speed and precision she couldn't explain. Elias rolled his shoulders once, calm and focused. "I'm not trying to stop them forever. Just long enough." There was a quiet confidence in him that made even the guards fall silent. Lyra felt her breath catch, not from fear, but from something like awe. He wasn't afraid. Not even a little. The footsteps grew louder. "There's still time to escape," the guard whispered to Lyra. But Lyra shook her head. "No, I trust him." Elias glanced at her briefly. It was only a second, but in that second, something unspoken passed between them. A promise, a partnership, a shared understanding. Then, he stepped forward. The door at the far end burst open. A squad of armored Sarathi soldiers stormed in, weapons raised. They saw Elias, standing alone in front of the princess, and laughed. "A single human?" one jeered. "This is the great union they speak of?" Elias didn't respond. He simply shifted his footing, lowering his center of gravity in a controlled stance. The soldiers charged. The guards braced themselves. Lyra watched without breathing. Elias moved. He didn't roar or shout. He didn't rush. He stepped into the chaos with a calm precision that made the guards freeze in shock. He sidestepped the first attacker, guiding him into the wall with a controlled push. The second swung a weapon. Elias ducked smoothly and tapped the soldier's wrist, making the weapon fall harmlessly. He never used lethal force. He didn't need to. He read their movements before they finished them. He turned their momentum against them, disabling one after another with clean, efficient motions. A sweep of his leg here, a twist of a wrist there, a redirect of an energy blade so it struck the floor instead of a person. Lyra's eyes widened. He wasn't fighting like a Sarathi warrior or even like most humans she had seen. He fought like someone who had survived battles too dangerous to speak about. He fought with experience, intelligence, and restraint. Within minutes, the soldiers lay on the ground, stunned, disarmed, or unable to stand. Elias stood straight again, breathing evenly. The guards stared at him, stunned into silence. Lyra stepped forward, her heart pounding not with fear, but admiration. "Elias," she whispered. He turned to her, calm as ever. "We need to move. There will be more." She nodded quickly. He reached out a hand, helping her step over fallen weapons. In that moment, she realized something powerful. He hadn't fought to impress her. He fought to protect her. He fought to protect peace. And he fought with a strength the galaxy had only heard rumors about. As they moved deeper into the Moon City, Lyra looked at Elias with new eyes. For the first time, she understood why humanity was respected and feared, and she understood that her decision to trust him had not been a mistake. It might have been the only thing that saved them. The deeper Princess Lyra and Captain Elias Ward moved into the Moon City of Vellis. The louder the alarms grew. Emergency lights flashed across the ceilings, casting long red shadows. Citizens ran toward shelters, guided by guards who shouted directions over the chaos. The once peaceful city now felt like a maze of fear and confusion. Lyra stayed close behind Elias. He walked with steady steps, always alert, always listening. Every few seconds, he glanced around corners, checking for danger before she reached the same places. His calm presence kept her from panicking, even though everything inside her screamed that this attack should never have been possible. Another explosion shook the corridor. Panels cracked, sending sparks raining down. Lyra covered her head. "They are targeting the core systems," she said, her voice trembling. "Yes," Elias replied. "They want Vellis weak, so they can use it as a stage. They want the galaxy to see you frightened and unprotected." Lyra felt anger rise. "They won't succeed." Elias looked back at her with a quick, reassuring nod, as if agreeing with more than just her words. They reached a junction where the path split into three. A wounded Sarathi guard slumped against a wall, breathing heavily. Elias knelt beside him. "What happened here?" Elias asked gently. The guard pointed weakly toward the left passage. "Vadran's elite squad. They forced their way in. They are heading to the central dome. They want the broadcast chamber." Lyra's eyes widened. "The broadcast chamber connects to every Sarathi world. If he forces a message through, he'll turn your people against the treaty," Elias finished. The guard grabbed Lyra's sleeve. "Princess, they have heavy weapons. You must escape. Your safety is—" But before he could finish, Elias placed a hand on the guard's shoulder. "We'll stop them. Live. Live. Live." The guard looked confused. A human and a princess against an elite squad? It sounded impossible. Elias stood and turned to Lyra. "We take the middle path. It connects behind the dome." Lyra nodded. She didn't ask how he knew that by now she understood. Elias learned things fast, remembered everything, and processed information with a focus she rarely saw in anyone. They moved quickly, weaving past damaged structures and fallen drones. Lyra noticed something strange as they walked. Elias breathed steadily, not even tired from the earlier fight. His steps never faltered. His senses seemed sharper than ever. It reminded her again that humans were different. Maybe not physically superior, but driven by something powerful, inside endurance, determination, the refusal to give up. As they approached the central dome, they heard movement ahead. Heavy boots, command voices. The enemy was preparing. Elias raised a hand, signaling Lyra to stop. He leaned forward slightly, listening. 20 soldiers, he whispered. 2 heavy blasters. They've sealed the main doors. They think no one will reach them from behind. Lyra's pulse quickened. "Can we get past them?" "Yes," he said calmly. "But you need to stay back when it starts." Lyra wanted to argue she was not helpless, and she hated being treated like she was fragile. But she remembered what happened earlier. Elias wasn't trying to replace her strength. He was trying to shield it. She nodded silently. They crept toward the chamber entrance. A narrow service door stood unguarded. Elias scanned the control panel, unlocked it, and slipped inside. Lyra followed. Inside the service passage, she could hear the enemy's voices clearly. They were preparing a forced broadcast, repeating hateful slogans against humans, calling the treaty a mistake, demanding Sarathi dominance. It made her stomach twist. Vadrin wanted to turn her people into tools for his power. Elias met her eyes. Ready? She swallowed. He placed a hand briefly on her shoulder. Good. Then he moved. He pushed open the maintenance door and stepped into the chamber. The soldiers inside spun around in shock. They had expected guards, maybe resistance fighters. Not a single human walking straight into the middle of the room. Who is that? One demanded. A human? Another sneered. Is he lost? Elias didn't answer. He didn't posture or threaten. He simply took a steady breath. The closest soldier raised a weapon. Drop to the floor. Elias stepped forward instead. The soldier fired. Elias leaned just enough for the beam to fly past him, scorching the console behind him. Gasps erupted around the room. Before the soldier could fire again, Elias moved in, grabbed the weapon, twisted it aside, and swept the soldier off balance in one smooth motion. The others shouted and rushed in. Lyra watched from the doorway, gripping the wall as Elias fought. He never attacked out of anger. He never struck with cruelty. He only disabled, redirected, and neutralized every threat placed in front of him. For every soldier who swung at him, he already seemed to know the angle. For every blast fired, he was a second ahead. He ducked under strikes, dodged behind cover, kicked weapons aside, and moved with such speed that the elite squad grew desperate. One shouted, "He's just one human. Why can't you bring him down?" Elias didn't answer. He simply kept moving with certainty and control. A heavy blaster hummed to life as a tall Sarathi soldier aimed directly at him. Lyra's breath caught. She wanted to run, to warn him, but Elias had already noticed. He slid across the floor, seized a fallen shield plate, and held it up just as the blast fired. The energy hit the plate and scattered harmlessly. He didn't waste a second. He threw the plate forward, hitting the gun and knocking it from the soldier's hands. Within moments, the elite squad was down unconscious, disarmed, or simply unable to stand. The chamber fell silent. Elias stood in the center, breathing evenly again. Lyra stepped forward slowly, her heart pounding not from fear, but from amazement. She had seen warriors fight with skill. She had seen soldiers defend with honor. But she had never seen someone move with such clear purpose, such pure discipline. "Elias," she whispered. "Are you hurt?" He shook his head. "No. Are you?" "I'm fine." He nodded, relief flickering in his eyes for the first time. But their moment ended as a voice echoed through the chamber. "So this is the human my people fear." Lyra stiffened. Elias turned sharply. Commander Vadrin stepped out from the shadows, tall and imposing, wearing armor marked with symbols of rebellion. His eyes were cold, fixed on Lyra, then on Elias. "You've caused me trouble," Vadrin said. "But it ends now." Elias stepped slightly in front of Lyra, not covering her, but shielded her with subtle positioning. Vadrin smiled darkly. "Do you really think you can protect her from me, human?" Elias didn't raise his voice. "Yes." Lyra felt something electric pass through the air, not from weapons, but from conviction. Vadrin's smile faded. Outside, distant alarms signaled that backup forces were approaching. The battle for Vellis was far from over. But Lyra knew one thing for certain. Humanity did not break easily, and Elias Ward was about to prove it again. The air inside the broadcast chamber felt heavy, almost frozen. Princess Lyra stood behind Elias, her heart racing as Commander Vadrin stepped closer. His armor glowed with sharp red lines. and his expression held a cruel confidence. He had come to Vellis expecting an easy victory. He had not expected Elias Ward. "You think you can stand in my way?" Vadrin said, his voice echoing through the chamber. Elias didn't change his stance. He kept himself between Lyra and danger, his posture calm but ready. "I'm not standing in your way," he replied. "You're standing in the way of peace." Vadrin tilted his head, amused. "Peace is weakness. It softens the spirit. The Sarathi were warriors once. Now they bow to humans." Lyra stepped slightly forward, her voice firm. "No one bows. We choose cooperation. We choose life over destruction." Vadrin's eyes narrowed. "You let one human convince you of that?" Elias raised a hand, stopping Lyra from speaking again. "If you have a problem, take it up with me. Leave her people out of it." Vadrin laughed. "Bold words. But you are still just one human." His soldiers, though injured, began to push themselves upright. Some crawled, others struggled to stand, but none were ready to continue the fight. Elias had made sure of that. Still, Vadrin looked confident, as if he didn't need them. "You will fail," Vadrin said. Elias didn't respond with words. He stepped forward. Vadrin's eyes flashed, and he launched forward with speed far greater than normal Sarathi strength. He swung his arm in a heavy arc, aiming to knock Elias back. Elias dodged cleanly, shifting his weight and stepping aside. The blow hit the ground with a loud crack, sending fragments across the floor. Lyra flinched. Elias didn't. Vadrin struck again, faster this time. Elias blocked with his forearm, redirecting the force away from himself. The movement was effortless, as if he had trained for this exact moment. But Vadrin didn't stop. He pressed forward, each strike louder and harder than the last. The chamber shook under the force of his blows. Lyra watched with wide eyes. Vadrin was larger, stronger, enhanced by battle armor. Elias was only human, yet he met every strike with precise movements, reading the attacks before they landed. He was not fighting to overpower Vadrin. He was fighting to outthink him. "Hold still," Vadrin roared. Elias stepped in close, too close for Vadrin's heavy swings. He jabbed a pressure point on the Sarathi's arm, causing his grip to falter. Vadrin staggered backward, caught off guard. "You trained well," Elias said quietly. Vadrin snarled and powered forward again, rage taking control. He aimed a crushing blow at Elias's chest. Elias dropped low, sweeping his foot across the floor. Vadrin stumbled, off balance, for the first time. Elias used that moment, pushing Vadrin away from the broadcast console. He didn't strike him. He didn't harm him more than needed. He simply dismantled his aggression with strategy. That made Vadrin even angrier. "You dare hold back?" he roared. "I'm giving you a chance to stop," Elias replied. Lyra felt a strange emotion rise inside her, something between fear and admiration. Elias wasn't showing arrogance. He was showing discipline. Even facing someone as aggressive as Vadrin, he refused to cross the line into cruelty. Vadrin roared and charged again. This time, Elias didn't dodge. He met the attack head-on. He stepped forward, caught Vadrin's arm, twisted it sharply but safely, and used the Sarathi's own momentum to bring him to the ground. The entire chamber shook as Vadrin fell. For a moment, everything went quiet. Vadrin tried to rise, but Elias placed a firm hand on his shoulder, holding him down without hurting him. "It's over," Elias said softly. Vadrin growled. "You're a monster." "No," Elias said. "I'm human, and humans don't quit when something is worth protecting." Lyra stepped closer, looking down at Vadrin with steady eyes. "Your fight ended the moment you turned your people into pawns." Vadrin glared at her, but he had no strength left to continue. The doors to the chamber burst open. Sarathi guards, along with Vellis defense forces, poured in. They froze at the sight. Vadrin pinned, his soldiers defeated. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then one guard whispered, "The human, he saved the princess." Another murmured, "He stopped Vadran." Alone, Lyra looked at Elias, seeing him not as a legend, not as a rumor, but as a man who chose restraint over violence, discipline over rage, and peace over power. She stepped beside him. "The treaty will hold," she said. "We will make sure of it." Elias nodded. Together, the guards took Vadran into custody. His elite squad, unable to resist, surrendered. The crisis ended not with destruction, but with capture and justice. Hours later, after the city was secured and medical teams tended to the wounded, Lyra and Elias stood on a balcony overlooking Vellis. The moon city was quiet now. The glowing lights returned to their normal colors. Citizens walked safely again. "You proved something today," Lyra said softly. Elias leaned on the railing beside her. "What's that?" "That humans are not dangerous because of their strength," she said. "They're dangerous because they choose how to use it." Elias smiled faintly. "Strength should protect, not harm." She turned to him. "You did more than protect me." He didn't respond with pride. He simply met her gaze with warm, steady eyes. Lyra felt her heart soften. In the chaos of the day, something had changed between them, something deeper than duty or alliance. A trust had grown, a bond, not forced by politics, but shaped by choices. A quiet breeze brushed past them. "Your people will talk about this," Lyra said. "So will yours," Elias replied. "But they'll talk about it with hope," she said. Elias nodded. "Good. Hope is stronger than fear." They stood together in silence, watching the city lights flicker gently in the distance. The warlord had tried to break the treaty. He had failed. The galaxy had seen a human stand alone against a rebellion not with violence, but with skill and control. For the first time in years, Lyra believed true peace was possible. And she knew that the man beside her, the quiet human with strength hidden under calm eyes, was the reason. She looked up at Elias. "Ready to show the galaxy what humanity and Sarathi can build together?" He smiled softly. And under the glowing lights of Vellis, their alliance became more than political. It became the beginning of a future neither of them had imagined. One built not on fear, but on understanding, courage, and the unbreakable will of a human who refused to let peace die.